That's a good intro. Thank you. So the title of what I want to talk to you guys about today is 7 Lessons from the 7 Summits. And I'm not necessarily going to go specifically into my business, although we mentioned it. That's one slice of my life. I like to be very well-rounded in what I do. And I'm going to add one little nugget in there. So this is 7. You're going to get like 7.5 lessons or maybe 8, because this is one I want to throw out to you guys right from the get-go. I can't say enough how important it is to choose a spouse wisely. I have gone on record saying who you marry is probably the most important decision that you'll make in your life. Again, choose very wisely. This is BYU, so you get a little extra piece in following the Spirit with who you choose. There is no way I would be as successful as I've been in life without a wonderful, supportive spouse. She makes me who I am. I married well above myself. I'm not just saying this. She's not even here paying me to say these things. She really is wonderful. She allows me to be who I want to be and just kind of quietly directs me in the background. So that's a number 8 there for 8 lessons. But I want to go through these 7 lessons that I've learned, and I kind of liken each one to one of the different mountains that I've been fortunate enough to climb. Another thing I'll throw out to you guys is if any of your takeaway from here is me standing up here saying, oh, look how cool I did because I did all these wonderful things, then you're reading me wrong, because I actually try to be very humble about this. I don't talk about it unless somebody drags it out of me. People know that I've done it. They read things in media, whatnot, and so they know that I've done it, but I try to remain very humble about it. So if you're picking up any of that, please don't, because that's not me in any way, shape, or form. What I'm also going to try to do is liken this to business background, business practices, those kinds of things. So I always start off my presentation with a hearty namaste. So this is done by putting your hands together like this, and you bow and say namaste like this. And so I say that to you, and you have to say it back to me. So namaste. Very cool. I like that. So in India and in Nepal and Tibet, this is a very traditional greeting. I'm sure some of you have been to India before, maybe been to Nepal or lived there, or been to Tibet or areas of China. Very, very common greeting. I love it. I think it's a fun greeting, and it means basically the goodness in me recognizes the goodness in you. So I like the fact that you're saying that back to me. So as was mentioned, this was my goal. Probably like you, if you have aspirations, and I walk around when I talk, so I hope you guys don't mind me walking a little bit, but probably like you, I have aspirations to do lots of wonderful things in life. I have kind of boundless energy, and so I like to set other goals to keep my life well-rounded. This is just a goal I set just because I wanted to. It didn't have anything to do with anything other than it was just something that I had a passion for, that I really wanted to do, and so I just said, what the heck, why not? I'm gonna do this. And what I really enjoyed about it, or one of the things I really enjoyed about it, was setting all these other little small goals to get this. You don't just say, oh, I'm going to go climb Everest, I'm going to go to the moon, I'm going to do whatever it is, X, Y, and Z. You've got to set all these little small goals to get to that larger goal. So I won't take the time to go through each one of them. You can kind of see the list here, but essentially it's the 7 highest points on the 7 different continents. There is a little bit of controversy surrounding the European high point. Some people don't consider it Elbrus, which is the high point in Russia, because they don't recognize that area of Russia as part of Europe. Even though it's on this side of the Urals, they still don't say that's part of Europe. So a lot of people recognize Mont Blanc, which is on the border of France and Italy. So being kind of high functioning like I am, I said, well, I've got to do that because I'm fairly anal retentive. And then also, a lot of people don't recognize the greater continent of Oceania, which includes New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Melanesia. Some people say it's just the Australian continent. So a couple things about that. The peak that is in Australia, it's called Kosciuszko, and it's only 7,300 feet. So Park City's higher, and you can pretty much take a chairlift most of the way to the top. So it's not quite much of a challenge. The bigger challenge is Carstensz Pyramid, which is on Papua New Guinea. Very difficult to get to, very difficult climb. jungle. It's a kind of a crazy place to go. It's like going into a National Geographic special or something like that. So I managed, fortunately, to get 9 out of the list of 7, and it's just because I'm a little weird that way. This also kind of gives you an overview of the different mountains right here. Some people say, I'll just point this out really quickly, Mauna Kea, they actually say, is the high point of the planet. If you take it all the way down to the seafloor, it's 33,500 feet. So probably like some of you, I have driven to the top of Mauna Kea and stood on the summit of that as well. So I just got to get all my bases covered here. So let me talk about lesson 1, overcoming fears. And I think this applies to you if you want to start a business. You can't be scared of it. You've got to overcome whatever fear that you have. One of my big fears is a fear of needles. It's called trypanophobia. I am totally irrational when it comes to needles. When they were handing out fears in heaven or on the other side, I did not get a fear of heights. They don't bother me. I can stand on anything like this, and it just doesn't bother me at all. But put a needle next to me, and I'll faint. It's that bad. It really is a huge problem. When my wife was having our second son, I was standing in the doorway. My wife was sitting on the bed, and some of you may have seen a epidural administered before. And so the doctor's got this needle. It's about the size of something you'd put in a horse, and he starts putting it into my wife's vertebra in her back. And I'm looking at it getting sweaty. I'm even getting sweaty talking about it, and boom, over I went. So needles are not my friend whatsoever. It's most likely origins relate to a traumatic experience as a child. As a child, I was quite sick. I was in the hospital. I can't point back to like one, time or something like that, but I got lots of IVs because I was sick as a child, and I just don't like it. So I'm sure this is the source. And actually researching this, and so I'll throw this out and submit this to you guys as well. If you have a fear, I think one way to overcome it is to research it. Study all about it. Study all you can about it and overcome it, because you will get strength by overcoming your fears. I don't mind telling you, I have not overcome this. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting there, okay? And it's estimated that 10% of the U.S. population is impacted by this. So I'm sure there are some of you in here that probably have the same and share the same needle phobia that I do. So just looking at that really just makes my skin cringe, and I saw some of you cringe as well, so you're probably among that 10%. This is very difficult, and you may say, what does this have to do with mountaineering? Think about it for a second. I had to get lots of insurance. My wife is very supportive, but she's not stupid. And so in order to go do this, I had to go get lots of life insurance. And in order to get life insurance, you have to give blood. And so I had to go do that, and that was way more difficult for me than actually climbing a mountain. The other thing that you have to do is get lots of immunizations, because you go to weird places, and that was very difficult for me as well. So just looking at that, this is kind of helping me overcome, but just thinking about that drives me crazy. The other fear that I have is creepy clowns. That's my second fear. I don't like clowns, and that probably goes back to something as a child. You have to admit that would freak you out if that was looking in your window. And there's nothing fun about that at all. That is just creepy. I just don't care for clowns at all. Okay, so lesson 2, you don't summit on your own whatsoever. So this is a picture. Recently I was able to go to Kilimanjaro, and that's my second son, Porter, the one that I passed out when we were getting an epidural when he was born. He's now 16. And I was fortunate enough, I went and summited in 2008 and had such a wonderful experience that this summer I took my 3 sons. I have 3 teenage sons. And when I came back, I said, guys, we're preparing. Everybody, get ready to summit, because we are going. And thankfully, everybody was able to summit on our trip. My sister went, some other friends and fathers and sons went. But you don't summit on your own. I like this quote up here. There's always somebody to thank for getting you where you are. If you think that you're here at BYU because of something you did on your own, that's probably true, but it's only partially true, because you had loving parents, you had loving brothers and sisters, you had others, teachers, mentors, scoutmasters, the list goes on and on. There are people in your life that got you here. So I think it's wrong personally to think that you are successful in sitting here at BYU because of something that you did. Lose that mindset and think about other people that help you or that helped you. I also say even if you summited solo, you didn't do that on your own. Somebody helped you get where you are. And finally, mentoring is very important. I'm very passionate about mentoring. And that's part of the reason that I took my sons back to climb. I had such a great experience. I wanted to share that with them. And as a father, you're kind of the ultimate mentor to your children. But I think it's incumbent upon everybody in this room, if you're successful, I should say when you're successful in business, because I don't want to say if. I'm sure everybody in here will be very successful in life and in business. When you are, I think it's your duty to give back to other folks. Mentor other people and help them get to where you are. That should be your ultimate goal. Make sense, everybody? Hopefully, yes. I'm seeing some head shaking. Okay, awesome. I like that. Okay, so here's some of the people that help you get up Kilimanjaro. When you go and climb it, there's like, we went with a group of 11 climbers, and we have 45 support staff. And it just is what it is. I call it the Kilimanjaro Full Employment Act. So you have porters that haul your luggage for you, have cooks, assistant cooks, you have a guide, assistant guides. It just is what it is. It's actually against the law to climb Kilimanjaro without hiring some kind of a guide group or porter team. Here's some more of these very happy faces, and they were great. They're very happy to haul our gear for us, haul our bags. Essentially, all you have to do is carry like a camelback with some water in it. It's very, from that standpoint, it's very nice to have that burden taken off of you. This next video, I took this with my phone, and it's just a little stop motion. I liked it because you can see how many tents and how much support staff that you have when you're going to climb this. We just, pack up our gear and walk out of camp. We've got all these other people that are supporting us here. Okay? Not unlike a business where all these other people are supporting the success of a team. I like this video too. I shot this one from the same camp. And there's no real point behind it. I just thought it was cool, so I included it in here. I hope you guys don't mind me including that in there. That was over the course of about 5 minutes. You can tell I was having fun with the new time-lapse feature on the iPhone, so that was what I was playing with right there. It's just kind of a fun thing. Have I sold anybody on going to Kilimanjaro yet? Okay, very good. All right, so lesson 3, small choices can have big consequences. Especially in the high mountains. Before I went to climb Everest, I sought out the advice of a guy named Appa Sherpa. And Appa, funny nepal, he lives here in Utah. He's the current world record holder, still the world record holder. He's tied for 21 times on the summit of Everest. He is a Nepali, but he lives here. He was brought over here by Senator Bennett about 10 years ago. And he's just the humblest, nicest guy you could ever imagine in the world. He's a really just small, little kind of Indian-looking guy. You'd never think if we lined up like 20 people here, he would probably be the last guy you'd think would be the world record holder for most summits on Everest because he's just a super quiet, humble little guy. So I had some friends who introduced me to him, and I asked for his advice. And this is one of the pieces of advice he gave me. He gave me a lot of advice, but he told me one of the things that happens is when you get to the summit, people frequently are very excited, they're elated, they take their gloves off because they want to get the all-important picture, they put their gloves down, their gloves blow away, and they lose a hand, right? If you don't have a glove up there, you're going to have a bad day really quickly. So he actually told me, and my climbing partner, he said, you guys tie them off to your suit, just like a third grader would, tying their mittens, off so they don't lose their mittens. I thought, I would have never thought of that, unless he had shared that wisdom with me. The other thing that he shared, so this is a little frostbite right there. That's what can happen. You don't want that to happen. So not only, think about it, guys, not only could you frostbite your hands, but is a hand like this that's cold going to be able to manipulate and move a rope? Probably not. And so what happens after you can't manipulate your hand anymore and hold on to a rope? You're going to fall and die. So just the simple act of putting your gloves down and forgetting and taking your picture, whatever it is, you could lose a hand and ultimately die. And I'll let you kind of apply that to your life and how small decisions can have big impacts in business or in life. And there's some frostbite on a foot right there. The other one that is kind of the same, along the same lines, if you take your glasses off, and this is actually very common at the summit of Everest, people will take their glasses off and you're up at 29,000 feet. So the atmosphere isn't what it is down here. It's not as thick, and so you can burn your eyes in like as little as 30 seconds. So he said, leave your goggles or glasses on no matter what. Bring an extra pair in case you forget them or they blow away or you lose them or they get broken or damaged or whatever. So between my buddy and I, we had extra gloves and we had extra goggles in each of our bags just in case something went south on us. And then again, because of these consequences, if you forget to clip into the rope, then you will likely fall and have a problem. So lesson 4, never, never, never give up. I love Winston Churchill. I assume most of you know who Winston Churchill is. He was Prime Minister in England and the UK during the war. That would be World War II. This is bombs that have been dropped. That's the Tower of London. I'm sure some of you have been there and seen that or walked across that. That's what Germans did during World War II. They shot this thing. This is what do they call it? It's a V-2 rocket. So these V-2 rockets, these are basically the precursor to guided missiles the way that we have them today. The only thing is we don't have a Navy SEAL painting like a target, so these things will fly in and hit exactly surgically where you want them to. They would just launch these things off from France and they'd hit willy-nilly wherever they wanted them to. So can you imagine the horror in London with these things just being lobbed over, just hitting willy-nilly anywhere? And this guy held everybody together. And if you haven't studied a world leader, if you've got a report to do, I would highly recommend studying Winston Churchill, because this guy, under some tremendous pressure, he held it together and was able to hold the UK together, and ultimately, us as a nation and them as an ally. So never, never, never give up. This is a picture that my oldest son took. This is a picture of Denali, or McKinley. It used to be called McKinley. This is up in Alaska here in the United States. And you very rarely get this nice picture. So we went out to a place called Wonder Lake and spent the night and woke up the next morning. The mountain was covered in clouds. Woke up the next morning and were greeted with this right out the tent. It was just an incredible shot of the mountain right there. So we got some beautiful photos of the mountain. The reason I put this picture on here, and the reason I talk about Denali, is to never, never give up. This is the only one that took me 2 times to get to the summit of. I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago. I don't mind saying this publicly, and I certainly don't mind saying it here. Mountains have a spirit. Each mountain has a unique spirit. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I pick up on it. I feel that energy from the mountain, and Denali's spirit is mean. My opinion is she doesn't want people on her, and so she'll take every opportunity to throw bad weather and try to throw you off. So I had to go back a second time, which is super frustrating, having been really close to the summit, but I'm still alive and having to turn around and go back a second time. So, didn't mean to do that. Let's go back here. Okay, so that is the same mountain from the summit. And this is a friend of mine named Steve Pearson that I summited with, and looking out at Wonder Lake where we were is about over that direction right there. So that picture right there, we're standing out here looking up at the mountain, that's out there. Isn't that kind of neat to see? So I snapped a picture of my friend Steve from the summit right there, and you can see the beauty. Anybody want to go? Yeah, very good. Okay, so lesson 5, patience. Lots of time, especially on Everest. I can't express to you enough how much patience that you have to have. I would say the same thing with business. Don't get lulled into thinking you're going to be a success overnight. It takes time, it takes patience to get where you want your business to be. The same thing with mountain climbing. I was gone the better part of 2 months climbing. And of course, I talked to people that had paved the way before me and talked to them about their experience. Only about 10 or 15% of the time is actually spent like climbing and romantic kind of. The rest of the time, you're just sitting in a tent. You're not really doing anything. You're sitting there resting, letting your body rest. You don't really feel good. Again, it's not like very romantic at all. You get nauseous. It's just really difficult to live at elevation like that, and that's what you're doing. Thankfully, I knew that beforehand, so I took lots of books. I took lots of, in fact, while I was gone, I don't mind sharing this with this group at all. My goal, within a goal, was to read the Book of Mormon while I was gone. So I was fortunate enough to finish the Book of Mormon during that 2 months I was gone on the trip. I read some other books as well. So I wanted to take advantage of all that time while I was gone. But lots of time spent resting, so patience. I think this is important, and this probably, well, I know this applies to business. If you try to charge up the mountain, you will likely die. If you grow too fast, your business is going to die. You're going to run out of inertia, you're going to run out of money, you're going to run out of steam. You can't just charge up the mountain willy-nilly. Especially at Everest, if you go up too quickly, the elevation is too great, you've got to acclimatize. If you go up too fast, you're going to get sick, and you'll have pulmonary embolism, cerebral edema, pulmonary edema. The list goes on and on of the problems that you could have because your body isn't acclimatized yet. So actually, when you climb Everest, and other mountains for that matter that are high, like in Nepal, big Himalayan mountains, the mantra is you climb high and sleep low. So you'll climb high. Base camp is about 17,500. Camp 1's at 19,500. You'll climb to Camp 1, spend the night, and then you come down and let your body rest for 2, 3, 4 days. And then you'll go to Camp 1, maybe spend another night, go to Camp 2, spend a night or two, and then come all the way back down. So when you climb Everest, when you summit it, you've probably climbed the mountain 3 or 4 times. You haven't gone all the way to the summit, but you're slowly going up the mountain as you go. People ask this question frequently. You don't use supplemental oxygen until you go for the summit. So once you're in the death zone, and the death zone is described as anything above about 25,000 feet, that's where you start using supplemental oxygen. We used it at about 23.5 because it gives you an extra boost. And so we started using it a little bit lower on the mountain. But the death zone is just that. If you spend more than 48 hours, much more than that, you will die. If we were to magically transport everybody to the death zone right now, we'd last for a minute or 2 or 3, because we're not acclimatized. And that's what you're doing that whole time, is you're getting your body to acclimatize so you can actually attempt to function at that elevation. But this is a question people always ask me: how do you go to the bathroom up on the mountain? And above 25,000 feet, the answer is you don't. So nothing comes out of you, liquid or solid. Your body is using every ounce of energy just to keep it alive. If you think about it, all you need to survive is brain, lungs, and heart. You don't need your legs, you don't need your arms, you don't need your hands, you don't even need digestion or reproduction. None of that stuff is important. You're just going for this right here. And your body's in crisis mode, and you just feel terrible the whole time that you're up there. I know some of you are saying, well, why would you do that? I can't explain it. I just like to do those types of things. It's fun. I like the challenge. And some of you may be saying, yeah, I do like a challenge. That's why I want to start a business or do whatever it is I want to do. The other interesting thing is in the death zone, your body during a standard 24-hour period, you burn 30 to 40,000 calories. Think about how many Big Macs that is, or Little Caesars pizzas, or whatever it is everybody's eating nowadays, Doritos, or whatever it is. You can't possibly put that much food in your body during that, because you can't carry it. So what's essentially happening is your body starts digesting itself, and unfortunately it doesn't go after the fat, it wants the muscle. So it takes muscle off of you. So I theorize I lost in total, by the time I came home, I was down 19 pounds. And I'm not a very big person, but it took about a pound from each side of my chest, and it easily took a pound to a pound and a half. I mean, if you think about it, this is just big muscle, right? Your buns are just a big muscle. And so I don't mind sharing with you. I got in the shower, and my wife looked at my backside and said, wow, you have lost your butt. It's gone. So especially, like even today, my pants where they used to fit, I used to have more muscle higher up on my backside, and my body just ate it away to survive. That's what it was doing. So you absolutely will lose muscle, and I don't mind sharing with you, if I'm honest about it, I lost brain power as well. It's not healthy for you to be up at elevation like that. So I definitely lost some brain power. So again, you're saying, what on earth? Why would you do something like that? So this is me. I included a picture of me sitting there being diligent, answering some emails. What's funny about this location, this is a mountain called Pomori. Everest is like over there against the wall. This is an adjacent mountain called Pomori. And a lot of people will use this mountain for acclimatization. So they'll climb up this because it's actually safer to go up this mountain. And what's interesting about going up the Pomori is you can triangulate to a cell tower down the valley and get signal. So, I had to get some signal there and return some emails. So I included that. This is a picture from my most recent trip to Antarctica. So this is me standing on the summit of Vincent and actually finishing my goal. Notice I've got 7 fingers up, so that's for the 7 summits. In a minute, I'm going to show you a picture of Australia, and I have 7 fingers up as well. I did that out of respect for our fine friends, the Australians, because the Park Service helped me get to the summit, and out of respect for them, I wanted to do 7 as well and include that as one of the 7 summits. So that you're in on the secret a little bit, but I wouldn't tell our friends, the Australians, that I don't consider their mountain one of the 7. So there's the 7 right there. So the Park Service was kind enough to help. My wife, I don't mind sharing, my wife has multiple sclerosis and she has mobility challenges. And so I reached out to, I can't say enough good about the Australian Park Service. I reached out to them and said, this is what I want to do. This is my goal. Can you help my wife get to the summit? And within 24 hours, they emailed back and said, absolutely, we will get. So they drove us a majority of the way to the summit and then helped us get her the last bit to the summit right there. So I can't say enough good about our good friends and allies, the Australians. So that's me holding, and that's why I'm doing 7 there as well, just so you guys know, because the park ranger was taking our picture. So lesson 6, you have to pay your dues. We're almost getting to the end here, guys. So lesson 6, you have to pay your dues. I want to tell you a very brief story about this gal. Her name is Shira Chlorphine, and Shira, she was Canadian, and she had a desire, and she was an entrepreneur, very successful, and she had a desire to climb Everest. She actually was successful in getting to the summit, and she did so on May 19th of 2012. The story goes, I never met her, I didn't know her, I just heard her story from when we were there in 2013. She was successful in getting to the summit. She showed up in Nepal with about 200,000 US dollars. She paid 3 Sherpas approximately 50 grand each, and then she paid the government another 50 to get a permit, and the goal was get me to the summit at all costs. She hadn't paid her dues, she hadn't put in the exercise, she hadn't done what she needed to do. So they took her money and helped her get to the summit. So that's her standing on the summit. Notice she's got the maple leaf flag right there, and there's a picture of her as well. They kind of had to just push her, and there's a term we use in mountaineering called short roping, where somebody's just really on a really short leash, and you're kind of pulling them up to the summit. Compare this photo and the elation that she must have had and felt with that photo. So this is the same flag, and she's perished. She's died here. So that's her body. What's even more unfortunate is this is the main trail right here, so you can see how close you are to everybody. This is, in essence, I-15 if you want to think about it that way. Camp 4 is right down here. She was almost there. If she'd made it there, she'd probably survived. But the Sherpas did everything short of carrying her, and they even dragged her and carried her the best they can. It's really difficult to survive at this elevation, and basically her body just gave out. And so that was her final resting place. They were able to go back the following year and recover her body, which is actually very difficult and very complicated. People always ask, did you see dead bodies on Everest? And the answer is yes. I don't mind sharing what I'm going to share with you right now, but I don't usually talk much more about it than this. You do see bodies. There are 225 between the South Col, which is down here, and the summit. They're in various states of repose. Most folks that die, you can't see it right here. I don't think you can with the resolution of the picture. But there's a rope right here, and that's the fixed line. So that's the I-15, if you want to call it that way, or call it that. And everybody goes up and down this main line right here. When they pass away, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, you can try to revive somebody, but it's very, very difficult just to survive on your own, let alone trying to save somebody else's life. So you just get, I would say it very respectfully, move to the side. And everybody just keeps on going. So as you're climbing up, it's very sobering to see people, like I say, in various states of repose, just sitting there. We talked about it before we went up. You try not to focus on it. There's nothing you can do about it. They're just there. And as the snow ebbs and flows and the ice, that more and more people come out. They look like wax figures because it's so cold and dry up there that nobody decomposes. So I'm not implying that you should do this by any stretch, but if you really are interested, you can go on the web, and they've documented each of the bodies and where they think people are, because some of the bodies are just completely gone or buried in the snow. After being home about a year and a half, I was curious and wanted to do some research on one of the individuals, so I went out and found out who this particular individual was. And this is a plaque to her that's there at the Climber Memorial on the way up. Okay, last lesson. I want to finish with this. So it's important to do something hard. I want to encourage you guys to do something difficult. Obviously, starting a business is difficult. That's why you guys are here. You're thinking about doing a business, doing something difficult. I say that, there's no time like the present. I started my business right as I finished grad school. I had my oldest son. He was just born. And I talked to my much better half, my wife, and just said, look, if there was ever a time to start a business, we essentially have nothing to really lose. Even if we fail, big deal. I'll go get a job somewhere else. So, if there was ever a time to start, I would encourage you as a student to consider starting that business. Nice view of Everest right here. This is the Kumu Ice Fall. And you can see they put all these crazy ladders there for you to climb through as you're going up the Kumu Ice Fall. This is, some of the glaciers that open up, and you've got 500 feet that you're staring down as you're going across that. This one's even better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ladders that you've got to traverse. There's no other way to do it. You can't go down, because this is 1,000 feet. So you can't go down and then traverse back up the other side. This really is the best way to do it. And yes, people fall off these that don't tie in to the fixed line. The Sherpas are taking loads up and down this all the time, and they're kind of the long-haul truckers of the mountain. They clip in, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I did, because I didn't want to fall, but they just scamper up and down these things without tying in, and on occasion, you do have somebody fall in, and they're not going to come out, unfortunately. As you're going up the mountain, this is what it looks like. So when you leave Camp 3 to go towards the summit, you get in line with like 120 of your best friends. And this is after we'd been to the summit. We were coming down. So you can see this is the traverse along the Lhotse face, and then that's the line that goes down the Lhotse face right there. We're getting really close to the summit here. So I just wanted to share a couple pictures with you as we're getting closer to the summit. Can you see those climbers? And then there's the summit right there. Focusing in. This is called the Hillary step right here. So we're getting closer and closer to the summit of the mountain. I was fortunate enough to snap this picture. It lasted for about 5 minutes. And I was fortunate enough to grab that summit pyramid. You start climbing, a shot of the summit pyramid shadow. You start climbing at 8 a.m. We summited at about 7:30 a.m. the next morning. And then there is the summit photo right there. So May 19th of 2013, I was successful in summiting. I feel super fortunate to have summited on my very first time. That isn't something that normally happens, and I credit that to a lot of sources, but I was super fortunate to get to the summit. I want to share this photo with you as well. At Camp 3, remember I mentioned I was reading the Book of Mormon, so at Camp 3, my friend Steve said, do you think a Book of Mormon's ever been to the summit? And I said, I have no idea. He goes, you think we should carry one? And I said, sounds like a great idea. You carry it. So so he carried it to the summit. As far as we know, we think it was the first Book of Mormon on the summit. He's much younger than me. I don't mind sharing with you, I'm 48. At the time he summited, he was 28, 29, so he's super active in social media, and he posted a picture on Facebook. I don't even have a Facebook account. I know jaws are going to drop, but I'm just not a social media person. He posted this picture on Facebook. By the time we got home, Deseret News had called us and said, we want to do a story on you guys. So they pinged us, interviewed us, and did a really nice story for the Deseret News. As far as we know, this is the first Book of Mormon on the summit. Is it relevant? I don't know. Is it kind of cool? Yeah, maybe, to have the first Book of Mormon at the summit. I saved it. I still have it. Once in a while, I'll show it to folks. But, You know, the other thing that we usually do at the summit too is sing High on the Mountaintop. So most every mountain I've been to, I've sang that, and this is no exception. We sang this at the summit of Everest. We reached out to most anybody else who's LDS that's climbed, and as far as we know, nobody else had ever said that they'd taken Book of Mormon to the summit. That's what the very summit looks like. I know we're getting close to time here, guys. One thing they ask you not to do is stand on the true summit, because there are a lot of faiths that believe deity resides at the summit. I don't mind sharing with you that I did not actually stand on the summit out of respect for deity. However, I did reach over and touch that spot because I wasn't going to have anybody tell me that I didn't reach the very top of the mountain right there. This, believe it or not, this is actually a plexiglass box that had a bronze Buddha inside of it. You could look over at the little box there. It was really kind of interesting. So the Hindu faith, the Buddhists, there are other faiths that believe that deity resides here at the summit. So the challenge I want to leave you guys is to do something difficult. I think that's kind of the ultimate message of this. And if it's starting a business, wonderful. Everybody's difficult is different, right? But that's my challenge to you guys. I'll leave that with you. Thank you, guys.